coming straight from the cockpit. It's another episode of Lunatic Fringe with the fucking pilot.
Ready, set, go. All right, back in the can for another edition of Lunatic Fringe Into the Void. Still in quarantine, still bored off of my ass, and needing a positive spin on things. I figured I would turn to probably the most positive person on the fucking planet that I know of. So let's just go dive right into it. Who the fuck are you and what do you do?
Hilarious. Epic intro, thank you. My name is Melanie Curtis.
Oh, no.
Gosh, the bullet points. I would say life coach, speaker, author, professional skydiver, ball of light, etc. Yeah.
That's a lot to unpack.
Yeah, it's all there.
All right.
That's why I do bullets.
That's cool. That's cool. Well, I have a shitload of respect, and I'm still going to give you some shit for a few things along the lines, but I'm so interested as a fellow Blue Skies, long-term Blue Skies contributor. In fact, I think you and I are probably the two most prolific writers they've had.
Yes, for sure.
Which is either a good thing or a bad thing, depending on your opinion. Depending on how you look at it. But it's always funny because I think you and I write very opposing styles, but the same good-natured fun. I'd like to think, So it's really cool to be able to talk to you, especially with as bizarre as everything is. So before we get too deep into the woods, let's jump all the way back, like I usually do, to how you got started in extreme sports and, of course, specifically skydiving, and what drove you to this, the Lunatic Fringe, this weird world we have.
Oh my gosh, yeah. Well, geez, I feel like I've told this story so many times, and like every time I'm always kind of like, is it what did I do? And then honestly, I grew up around aviation. So my dad is a pilot, and we had a drop zone in our backyard.
Wow.
My dad has he has a grass strip behind our house. And so, my first flight was when I was 3 months old. My parents are divorced, so I would visit my dad on weekends and stuff, but I was really exposed to skydiving at a young age. But, I was also still quite scared of it. And even though I had sat through the first jump course, God, how many times? Tons of times.
Right.
And I could have jumped when I was 16 years old, but I wasn't ready. I was still too scared.
Sure.
But then one day when I was 18, I kind of basically just got sick of thinking about it and sick of feeling nervous every time I thought about it,
Right.
like sick of being just scared of it, that I said, oh, forget it. Fuck it. Tomorrow I'm doing it. And I did. And so I sat through the first jump course with an intention, the full and real intention to jump. And for me, it was one and done. I was forever gone after I did that first jump. When I landed in the backyard and I lived, because I always say this to people from the inspirational perspective too, like a life coachy perspective, people who are non-skydivers, is, how people say it. You jump out of an airplane. I could never jump out of a perfectly good airplane.
Right.
But what I think people don't add to that sentence is, I could never jump out of a perfectly good airplane and live. I think I really feel like it's true fear of death,
Sure.
Major injury maybe, but I think it's primarily, or at least for me, was death. And so when and I wasn't even aware of that as a young person. So when I landed and I was not dead, my fucking brain blew up.
Right.
Like I was forever changed, that the things that I think I can't do, I have to at least question.
Sure.
Can I do them?
It's kind of funny that you say that, because I had a relatively similar experience as well. It took me, obviously, I was raised around aviation, but I wasn't raised around skydiving. I started flying when I was 16, but didn't really do much with it. And I decided I had to go make that jump, kind of just to cross it off the list. It was one of those things that you had to do. And then bad weather and aircraft problems took a a month of going every week to try and make that first jump. And by the time it finally came around, it was relief that we were finally in the plane and on our way up. But the fear,
Right.
it was this intense
Right.
fear. And I think the
Yeah.
reason that I was so instantly hooked is because when I landed, I realized that I'd been scared out of my wits, and in spite of that, had so much fucking fun in that moment
Yeah.
that I'm like, oh my God. And I don't know about you, but a lot of the skydivers I know, death, the thought of it is a constant companion for a lot of skydivers.
Oh, yeah.
And how fucking weird
For
is
sure.
that, that people, especially like me, it's a constant, thought in my mind. All right, this could or that could or whatever. It's a very odd thing that we go out of our way to do what most people think is insane.
Yeah. Well, now I talk a lot about life coachy stuff.
Sure.
And I always say, I always laugh about it because I like to think I'm the life coach for people who don't like life coaches.
Right.
In the sense that I try to sound like a normal person. And back in the day, it was, much less known and received as a sort of modality for support and teamwork and healing and all
Sure.
the good stuff. But talking about overcoming fear, think about that. Like we don't even have to jump out of an airplane. I mean, if you do anything that you think you can't do,
Sure.
you feel fucking amazing.
Oh, yeah. Oh,
You
yeah.
feel so good. What I think is so incredibly unique about skydiving is what you said as well, is how unbelievably fun it is.
Mm.
Like don't even, still to this day, what I've been skydiving almost 24 years now, and I have about 11,000 jumps and yada, 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 done a lot of different things. I even took a couple of years off after having sort of a, big life breakdown and just massive sort of issues with my own fear
Sure.
and just lots of stuff going on in my life. And so I decided very consciously to take a couple of years off. And the biggest thing that was so incredible, other than figuring out how to really get through that challenge and that fear of getting back in the air after that long off, was how insanely fun it was.
Right.
I just did a freaking hop and pop, just jumped out and landed a parachute, and it was off the charts. So
Right.
incredibly fun.
Right. I mean, that's kind of, you and I actually have extremely similar careers in that I started right around the same time as you. I've got about 11,000 jumps, give or take. And I took
Yeah.
about a 4-year break. Not so much. I mean, I guess it was to deal with life issues, but I just had gotten burned out on the sport because I
Yep.
made the mistake of only working in the sport and never.
Yeah. I totally was burned out too. That was part of why
Yeah.
I needed to.
I
Also.
I found myself in free fall pissed off about something that had happened on the ground earlier that day and went, whoa, okay, no,
Right.
I've just crossed a really bad line. And that was when I
Yeah.
decided, nope, it's time to stop jumping for a while. And then I got back into it because my buddy Junior Ludwig asked me to go make a jump with him. And the idea of it gave me butterflies. And I went, oh,
Yeah.
fuck, it's time. Here we go. And it was right back to
Wow.
that. I was a kid in a candy store again.
That's so awesome.
Right? It's amazing.
Yeah, I feel like it's common for people who have been in the sport a long time to have to grapple with those types of experiences of burnout, or just because we as people, we evolve.
Sure.
You know what I mean? We as skydivers, we evolve. And so like for me, I had engaged in the sport in one way, really, which was full on crazy level of intensity
Right.
in every single thing I did.
Right.
Like wildly intense, whether
Yeah,
it was.
I wouldn't picture that.
Yeah, I know. I know. It's so bad. But I mean, not bad. I don't mean it in a judgmental way, but
Right.
I mean it like it was very singular. It was a singular approach that I had to our sport.
Right.
And of course, that was part of why I have been able to do so much that I've been able to do, because I set aside other things that I could do with my time, resources, energy, attention,
Sure.
etc.
Sure.
So that matters. That's a good thing. It's a good outcome from that type of intensity. And it also was partly why I blew up and burned out so bad.
Sure.
And this is a bigger discussion around just my own personal development, but really being unconscious to my own perfectionism and my own, wanting to be liked, things like that, like
Sure.
really having to work that stuff out after burning out so bad that I had to be like, why did that happen?
Right.
Like, and it wasn't all that because there was so much love, pure love in my approach as well, which is also the number one reason I think I've been successful in skydiving.
Sure. Now, do you think that, especially having gone through what you've gone through, do you think skydivers in general are better at looking in and seeing these things and acknowledging these problems? Because, I mean, as skydivers, we're forced to face things that most people either glaze over or just pretend don't happen. So I tend to maybe paint skydivers in a slightly brighter picture than maybe all of them are, but I tend to think that they'd be willing to look inward a little bit more and examine, hey, why is this happening? What the fuck did that cause? I think, at least in my opinion, but how about you?
I really hope you're right. I mean, that's my thought on that, is that I really do hope that you're right. What I think is I don't know the internal goings on of any person,
Sure.
and I'm not trying to skirt the question.
Sure.
I'm really owning that because I believe that deeply
Sure.
as an open, non-judgmental space that I would hold for a person. That if they were to want to step into looking inwardly, then they could.
Sure.
You know what I mean? But it's not something I've ever. I mean, certainly as a leader, as just a person, just from my personal approach to life and leadership, is I got to be doing it.
Sure.
I got to be doing it myself.
Sure.
I got to be doing the fucking work myself if I want anybody else to necessarily be inspired into it for themselves, if they're looking to me as a leader.
Yeah, for sure.
Now, whether or not broadly skydivers do that or not, I don't know. What I think, though, and this is one thing that is very hopeful for me about our beautiful, amazing sky family, as it were, is that I do think skydiving is this incredible stepping stone to more personal development.
Sure.
In loads of different areas of life, because what I think a lot, and I don't know, maybe not many people have this experience, but I think it's pretty common. You tell me what you think, but I feel like what happens to a lot of us as skydivers is we go into the sport, we fall in intense love, and we go nuts with it. We don't go crazy.
Right.
And then we inevitably, in some form, however big or small this might happen for us, we start to lose the love.
Sure.
We start to have the sparkle fade, and we don't know why, and we're confused. We're like, why? Like this, I thought this was like the answer.
Right.
And when that happens for people, and I've seen this many times with people I've worked with in life coaching and skydiving, just people in the sport or more deeply as a life coach, and myself, and for sure myself, is that when that happens, that's usually the time when people start to look
Sure.
more closely within.
Sure. No, and I completely agree with that. It's I mean, I think that's got to happen to everybody at some point. The shine kind of comes off the penny to some degree. If, like you and I and most of the jumpers we know, it becomes this total immersion thing. I mean, I was not a weekend warrior. I went from,
Right.
one jump, and the next thing you know, I was shooting tandem videos 3 months later. It's
Oh my gosh.
yeah, and this is, again, back about the same time that you and I started together, in the same time frame. You could get away with a lot more back then.
Yeah.
And knowing people got you a lot further than being any good at it.
Oh my God.
So for diving in headfirst that way, I think burnout was kind of inevitable. Also,
Yeah.
when you start out that way, especially with the generation that you and I came up with, where you had, Olav and Omar and the Flyboys and all these larger than life characters, Digardon and all these people that were doing these fucking incredible things that, before you stepped into the sport, you had no knowledge about, and now they're heroes. And then a few years later, you end up drunk next to a jacuzzi with one of them, and you find out, oh, this is just another human being. This is just someone doing their own thing and living their life. And as soon as you realize that, it's almost kind of like when you realize as a guy that your dad's just a dude.
Right.
You know,
Totally.
it turned,
Yeah,
you
I
know,
love that.
and
I
it,
love that about skydiving.
so do I. No,
I really
absolutely.
do.
And you know, it's kind of funny. Not that long ago, I had Omar Aligan on, and he was a hero back in the day. You know, when I was coming up, and now I consider him a personal friend.
Yeah.
And that's a fucking incredible thing when you get
I
to,
say that all the time.
yeah, you know, you get to wake up one morning and go, my heroes are actually friends of mine. That's so cool.
Yes.
You know, and
I've said that so many
yeah,
times.
you know, and that's the
Oh
joy
my
of the
God.
sport.
I still say that. Like
Yes.
I said this about Amy the other day. So Amy Shimalecki and I are co-leading the Highlight Pro skydiving team. So it's the all women's demo team that's centered around social impact and equality, which is just totally off the charts amazing. I'm so psyched to be a part of something like that.
Mm.
And honestly, and getting to work with Amy as, sort of co-lead, it's just amazing. But I just laugh about it because it's the same exact sentiment where I'm like, wait, Amy Shimalecki is my
Yeah.
friend?
Yeah.
Wait, what? She was totally my idol back in the day. Just so wonderful. That's one thing that's really wonderful about skydiving
Yes.
is that you really have true human access to people you admire really at the highest levels of the sport. And it's just amazing. I don't know. I just could go on and on. Eliana Rodriguez and Tasha Montgomery. Like, there's so many people I could list
Oh,
that
of
I'm like,
course.
wow, these people are my real friends. What?
Oh, I know. Well, and I had the opportunity to interview Craig Girard, who is, I mean, come on, it's fucking Craig Girard. And the
Right.
studio that I had at the time when I was doing the podcast was literally in a toilet. And I couldn't help.
Wait, what?
Yeah, no. So my first studio, I built a soundproof room in my spare bathroom. So I got Craig Girard to come to my house and sit in a toilet with me and talk about skydiving. And there was not one point during that interview that I wasn't shaking my head going, that's fucking Craig Girard in my toilet.
Right.
And it was, it was just the coolest thing ever because you realized that these people that you had hero worship for just deserved respect for being fucking great people and respect for being amazing in the sport. And I almost look at the way that I had that hero worship for people as almost a bit of an insult because you don't take into account who they really are. So it's so much more of a full appreciation for just how great some of these people are. Unfortunately, when you're in the sport for a long time, you also learn to understand that some skydivers are just kind of shitty too.
Well, yeah. I mean, hey,
Yeah.
the world.
It's
the world.
Exactly.
I've written about that. Yeah, I've written about that phenomenon of about skydiving and how people were like, okay, I want to find my tribe. And for me, I've certainly distinguished that it's not actually skydivers that are my tribe. It's people who are kind, people who are inclusive, people who are, have integrity with their word, like things like that.
Sure.
You know what I mean? That those are the things. And it just so happens that skydiving elevates our connection.
Right.
You know what I mean? But really what my tribe is centered around core values like that.
Sure. Well, and that falls back to what I said earlier, being hopeful and thinking that skydivers have this ability to, be a bit more introspective. And, I'm hoping I'm painting them with the proper brush. But I
think so. I really do. I mean, because I feel like it takes bravery to jump out of an airplane.
Sure it does.
It does. I mean, I would imagine most of us were scared the first time we went, whether we want to admit it or not. I mean, I definitely was, but I feel like that really, it can't not serve people.
No.
I would be surprised if it didn't.
Well, there was this goofy book that was written way, way, way back when, and it was very much a self-help book when self-help books were just getting kicked off. And I remember reading the first, 8 or 10 chapters of it, and it was a book called Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway. And it was, a cool, catchy title. And at the time I had been through a bad motorcycle accident in LA and was actually dealing with the anxiety from that motorcycle accident that I didn't even realize was connected. When I'd had that accident, I had a doctor standing over me in the hospital dealing with just a broken foot telling me I should be dead. not thinking,
Wow.
but I didn't think anything of it. I'm 21 years old. So,
Right.
wow, okay, that's going to be a good story. And then about 6 months later, the realization of what he said kicked in. And I really had to come to grips with the fact that, oh, shit, I'm like mortal. In an attempt to try and fight that anxiety that kept coming back, I eventually ended up jumping out of an airplane just to kind of show myself, fuck you. If you're going to die, you're going to die, but don't, die standing up.
Yeah.
So I pushed through that, and it became the most liberating thing I'd ever done.
Yeah. It's incredible. I also feel like we were talking earlier about my singular focus of how I was always super intense.
Right.
And why I brought that up actually is because after my break and after my own introspective period and my own sort of reckoning with my identity and what I really want in life and healing deeply and figuring out how I got burned out, all the things that kind of I had to do, the work I had to do personally, internally to figure that out, is that I was able to really redefine and reconfigure for myself how I wanted to approach skydiving. And I was like, I basically had a fear that I just wouldn't be accepted, or I wouldn't like get jobs, or I wouldn't get work, or just I wouldn't basically be successful anymore if I weren't being that super intense version of myself. And I had to then essentially I had to buck up and use my courage to just be honest and tell the people that I was the people that were inviting me to come and work, which I'm always so intensely grateful for. I'm still just amazed that we get to do this work.
Right.
Is I had to really be straight and say, the Melanie Curtis of yesteryear is gone. Like that, I'm not going to be doing load 1 to sunset back to backs. I'm not doing that anymore.
Sure.
What I really want, and I really had a very clear when I came back, and this was 2000, 16? I think it was 2016.
I think you copied my whole career. It was about when I started jumping again. Yeah.
That.
Same thing.
I love that. See, we're kindred spirits.
Yeah.
I love that. It's so good. And the writing, that is just epic too, by the way. I have super, super respect for that. I know you, and I feel like you're one of the only people who knows how hard it is to actually do that.
Sure. Yeah, no, absolutely.
But anyway, where I was going is I had to be honest, and I got really clear with myself because I had found sort of this, I had done my hop and pop, I'd done some jumps, and I had sort of rediscovered and reconnected to my love of skydiving.
Right.
Like that pure initial love. And I was like, I don't want to fucking mess with that.
Right.
Like, I don't want to lose that again. So I had to really think about how do I really want to engage in the sport of skydiving now? And then be brave enough to tell people that's what I was going to do.
Right.
And so for me, it became clear that the only way I really wanted to work in the sport was just going back to my roots and doing basic belly skills camps for new jumpers. Like I love working with new jumpers.
Sure.
It's one of my favorite things to do. I've always loved it, and I still really love it.
Well, it's the most rewarding thing.
Yeah, it's so rewarding. And it's just awesome to be able to help people find a path in the sport for themselves.
Sure.
It doesn't necessarily mean that people need to be belly flyers or whatever, but just the fact that you can help someone when they're so new, be safer, feel like they make friends, feel like you have just great, amazing, fun, cool jumps. I love that.
Sure.
And yet also learn skills on how to be better.
Oh, yeah.
How to get good.
One of the big revelations that I had both before and especially after I started jumping again was that I'm never going to be the best at any facet of skydiving.
Right, me either.
But that was such a huge thing, and it was funny because it just kind of took the pressure off the entire sport. I was never going to be the best tandem instructor. I was working with some of the best that have ever touched a tandem rig. I was never going to be some incredible swooper or free flyer, and modern tunnels put me in my place in a fucking big way. I mean, holy shit. You want to realize you really aren't that good. You go fly with a 12-year-old that's been in there for 2 years. It's insane.
Oh my God.
So I think one of the biggest things that just kind of lifted all that weight off was just, dude, you're never going to be the best. So just have fun with it, because at the end of the day, somebody lets you jump out of a fucking plane.
Yeah.
And that for me was huge. And I really did get to enjoy the sport a lot more. And I was lucky that when I stepped away from jumping, I didn't step away from the sport because I was flying. So I still had the community, which is, to be honest, for me, always been more important than the jumps.
Yeah, same. For me, it was like I sort of fell in love with four-way FS at the beginning. So when I went nuts, I went nuts as a new jumper. And then basically I found four-way FS and immediately fell wildly passionately in love with that and pursued that for basically the first half of my skydiving career, like to the point of doing a professionally sponsored team, the whole works. Anyway, that, oh wait, what was I going to say about that? What were you saying? What did you just say?
We've already cut across a whole lot of different subjects all the time.
Yeah, I know. Oh, this is what I was going to say, is that I was so intense into four-way, and through that experience, I originally initially was, as most young competitors say, they're like, oh, I want to be a world champion. And just because that's the path,
right?
If you're really into four-way, that's the path. You just go hardcore and you try to be the best in the world.
Right. And
it became clear to me later on in my path how I just really didn't care about that.
Right.
Really, I learned about myself as I grew and evolved, as a person. I realized, I really don't care about being a world champion.
Right.
What I care about is, and my mindset shift happened where I really just wanted to be able to be on the jumps, on the jumps with my friends.
Right.
So if that was a badass four-way FS jump, cool. If that was a 20-way head down, cool.
Sure.
If that was, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's like I wanted, if that was a big way canopy flock, great. So I wanted to have all the skills to be able to basically play with my friends.
Sure.
And that has been my focus for pretty much my whole career since that realization.
Yeah, and kind of the same for me as well. I think my overriding goal when it came to fun jumps that weren't just hop and pops was I want to be on a jump where I at least have a 50-50 chance of not being the guy that fucks up the skydive. I want to be good enough to know I can be there, but I don't have to be the rock star and I don't have to lead a damn thing. And I'm even fine with being just on the outskirts of the really cool shit that I'm watching happening. And even when I wasn't jumping, and even now, I still take great pride over other skydivers' accomplishments just because I know how hard it is and how amazing it is. So I kind of I already understand, when I'm watching my buddy Junior standing on the podium because he's won some badass swoop competition, or any of the friends that I have that are these amazing champions, I take pride in their accomplishments because I understood what it took to get them there. And
agree.
That's enough for me. I don't need to be the one to stand on the podium, because really when it comes down to it, we're members of a very select group of people on this planet. We do something that most people think is just out of this world, or they can't even conceive of how and why we do what we do. That's enough for me.
Yeah, I totally agree. I completely agree that I don't know if your listeners know, but I do a podcast with Jay Maletsky called Trust the Journey. And it's cool because the reason I bring that up is because Jay's told his story on our show about his podium moment, of how he really was just, his whole life was centered around becoming a world champion, and this is, you hear this type of story with so many professional athletes inside skydiving and out, is that you'll have a peak moment, and maybe it's a professional athlete, but any sort of peak moment where you reach the peak moment, and then afterwards there's usually like depression because
Yeah.
people are like, what do I do now?
Oh, yeah.
Like, because they're centered on the peak moment. And then again, it sort of opens that door to that reflection. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
I was really lucky relatively early on in the sport. I remember being on a twin otter load with an 8-way team that was training for a big upcoming competition, and they were having problems getting through whatever round they were trying to deal with. And one of them, with all sincerity, said, "We're getting that last point or we're going in." And
Oh my gosh.
Oh, yeah. And I remember hearing that and thinking, I never want to be that intense about this sport. Never. I just couldn't fathom needing to win so bad that even joking about that statement would come out of my mouth. But he said it with sincerity. And I remember looking at him and thinking, I don't ever want to sit where you're sitting right now. And it's not to downplay the intensity that he had. That's just not the path that I wanted to take. And it was a great lesson to learn. I'm really glad that I overheard that because it snapped into me in one instant. Oh, nope, that's not you.
Yeah, and I love that. I love that you knew that for yourself because it is so fascinating how we really do just all have our own unique path.
Sure.
Because I'm doing pretty intense stuff right now with the demo team, with the demo jumps that we're working on putting together, and the just high level nature of those with high level media
Sure.
and live feeds, and it's likely to be. I'm imagining them to be quite intense.
Sure.
Maybe I'll be wrong. Maybe they won't be as intense as I'm imagining. But they definitely are requiring a ton of, absolutely ton of prep work and certainly training and all of that stuff. So it's interesting what motivates though. You know what I mean? Like
Sure.
for me, I've said this about the demo stuff and highlight is that I don't think I would be as psyched about highlight or the demo team or doing demonstration jumps if we were just jumping into the NFL football game,
Right.
if we were just jumping in for like, I don't know, Evian water, like
Right.
I wouldn't be into it. But because it's centered around impact, social impact and equality, that has me psyched.
Sure.
Because it basically feels like this elevated and interesting use of our sport in a very positive, amazing, positive way.
Right.
Broader, like beyond the sport, and yet also ideally impacting the sport in a big way, because one of our goals is to really address the gender parity issue in skydiving. I don't know if you've heard the statistic of 13% of skydivers are women.
No,
And
I haven't.
Yeah, and so it's just our goal is hopefully to be out there in the world,
Sure.
In the presence of WUFOs, non-skydivers, and showing young girls and women what's possible for them.
Sure.
Like by just being present, by just doing it at all.
Sure.
And so that excites me a lot, both hopefully for our impact on the sport and helping increase the number of women that participate in skydiving in a sort of more immersive way, like AKA get their license and become skydivers.
Right.
And also just from the impact of message on be brave and be bold. The initial inspiration for the team was centered around the women's suffrage movement and the just intensity that those women had to go through for decades to earn the right to vote in America.
Right.
And certainly across the world. But so I wouldn't have even thought about that stuff.
Right.
You know what I mean? But that's what I mean by like the evolution. Gosh, back in the day, I was, same as you. I was hanging around, making jokes around the campfire, not thinking twice about our bigger world.
Right.
You know what I mean? And so it's just really exciting and motivating to me now to be a part of something that paints skydiving in a really beautiful, positive light for the bigger world, and hopefully is using the power of skydiving to capture attention, using the cool factor of skydiving for something really good in the world as well.
No, and I completely agree. And it's kind of funny because I've looked back and I've actually had this discussion a number of times with different women on the podcast, and I consider myself very lucky in the ignorance that I had early on in the sport, because I came up with amazing female skydivers.
Yeah.
So I just assumed that was how it was. I mean,
Right.
when I very first started, I ended up forming a sky surfing team with Mary Tortomasi, who's now out of Paris Valley, so that we could learn how to sky surf. She was a better flyer in the Vegas tunnel than I was. She could fly the board and I couldn't fly the board. It never crossed my mind that she was a woman. She was just a better skydiver than me. And,
Yeah.
when I was very first learning, I went out and I think on my 25th jump, and this is how stupid I was, my buddy Kevin Love loaned me his camera helmet so that I could shoot four-way video for him, Lou Sanborn, the guy that owned the Vegas wind tunnel, and Juliana C., who I had a huge crush on instantly because she was this amazingly talented skydiver and had the accent and beautiful in the whole 9 yards. And again, I just assumed she's just a badass skydiver. It was kind of that thing. So it wasn't until I started writing for the magazine that I got clued in that, oh, no, your experience is a little bit different than a lot of people's in the sports. And you were, I want to say, a little bit sheltered and a bit naive in the way that I was looking at things, which I've definitely been, I've been schooled.
Yeah, I know.
And it's good. Like, I had a conversation with another podcast guest about the fact that when the Me Too movement started and everything was really popping off culturally, I was the first person for Blue Skies magazine to write an article about it. Probably not the best thing.
Yeah.
To be the fucking pilot writing about a Me Too movement. And Laura from Blue Skies, of course, was laughing, saying, no, I enjoyed the article. Yeah, maybe we should have rethought and had a woman write on the subject before you did. But, and again, I wrote it from that rose-colored glasses perspective of, no, women are badass and there's so many female skydivers that are so much better than me, basically ignorant to the fact that so much other shit's going on in the sport.
Right.
So it's been a learning experience, and I almost kind of shy away from it because I don't want to appear to be virtue signaling. But the fact of the matter is, I actually really do understand and buy into exactly what I've been taught, since then.
Yeah, no, and I respect that. Thank you for sharing that because I feel like that's what happens.
Right.
Is that we just don't know what we don't know.
Right.
And and I really do respect that you are willing to use your platform and use your voice to help elevate these conversations.
Sure.
And this is directly connected to what's happening in the world right now.
Right.
With the huge, massive conversation talking about, racism in America and police brutality, and this is a bigger conversation, and we don't necessarily need to super deep dive into it if you don't want to, but it's super important, in my view, to use our platforms and our voices to stand behind those messages that matter. And it is uncomfortable. It's scary.
Sure.
It's totally scary. And I also think, at least for me, I had to do a ton of learning because, as just a white person, of course, you're blind.
Sure.
You start blind and you end up saying things that you feel shame around once you realize.
Right.
And so for me, it really launched me. And this happened in 2016 for me. I just was deeply moved by the deaths of Alton Sterling and Philando Castile.
Sure.
And this is, again, sort of I know it's hard discussions and I don't mean to bring the audience down, but I really think this is important to talk about. Sure. And so that was essentially for me the start of me sort of waking up to white privilege. Right. And I didn't know fucking anything, man. I felt so out of my depth. And I still feel that way a lot of times. And I mean, you can probably hear it in my voice. I'm a little bit nervous even talking about it now, right. But it's important in the sense that white people need to be behind the movement. That's the idea. And so I would invite people who are interested in learning more to read books like White Fragility, Stamped from the Beginning, How to Be an Anti-Racist, Me and White Supremacy. Like there are so many really amazing resources out there that help us illuminate those blind spots so
Sure.
that we can step into conversations in a thoughtful and educated and just empowered way. And again, I'm not saying it's going to be easy. It's for me been very messy and very painful and shame filled and at the same time amazingly empowering and beautiful as well,
Sure.
because for me, I feel like I'm trying my best to be on the right side of history.
Well, that's the funny thing, right? I mean, you only know what you know, what your experiences are, and what your view of the world was. And again, I've been lucky enough to wear rose-colored glasses almost my entire life.
Totally. Me too.
I'm a Northern California white boy from, an upper middle class family that really, in the big scheme of things, never wanted for anything. It adds to that guilt that you have. And guilt and then fear of saying anything in either for or against anything, because you don't want to either appear to be racist or virtue signaling or anything. And people are just confused. What do I say?
Yeah.
How do I not upset anybody in a fucking generation where it's all about likes?
Oh gosh. Yeah, well, one of the ideas that helped me the most, because it makes sense, right? It's totally understandable that a person would not want to be labeled as something painful. Sure. In this case, we're talking about race and someone saying you're a racist. Right. One of the biggest ideas that helped me in this work came from the book How to Be an Anti-Racist, was basically distinguishing and changing the language. So instead of identifying people as you're a racist, you're not a racist, as really talking about racist ideas, right, that we all we're born into this sea of ideas, sure, that everybody, has some of that in their psyche.
Absolutely.
And there's racist ideas everywhere. And so it's not necessarily that people are bad people. My hope is that people are all, the majority of the people in the world are good, sure, people, is really where I come from. I truly believe, I joked at the beginning, but like that whole I'm a ball of light, I really believe that deeply, and that we can talk more about spiritual evolution and growth and stuff, but really looking into the darkness takes bravery. Sure. And it's so much harder to do when you fear that you're going to find out this identifying thing versus going, I can find ideas that have been in my blind spots, just like any other idea that doesn't serve you. Maybe it's the core gremlin thought, I'm not good, right, enough, or I'm not lovable, like those basic things that almost every human also, sure, has. Is that if we can find those ideas in the blind spots by looking, that's good work. Yeah. Like that's brave, good work. And it's painful. It's not to say it's not hard work, but it's good work. And so I invite people to really look for just those racist ideas. And it's easier to do that work, in my experience, by reading books like this and starting to really get a better understanding of what you're looking for. And also why it doesn't denounce you as a terrible person, but rather someone who's trying to be a part of a bigger solution.
No, absolutely. They're tough realizations to have, and very tough to admit, even just to yourself. It's
so hard.
I mean, that's the thing.
So hard. Shame storms.
Yeah, I mean, it's really it's very difficult, especially when, like me, I'd say everybody has a similar experience, someone that they know that kind of planted a seed in their head that maybe they don't even acknowledge, but it comes creeping back.
It's complex. Right? There's a lot to it for sure. But yeah, and like you said, those people in our lives and that say something and we don't necessarily know what to say, or we stay silent. I mean, there's plenty of times I've done that, plenty, lots. And I'm not proud of that. And part of, at least for me, is okay, great. What's something I can really do is start to learn to have skills where what would it look like if I could speak up in that scenario in a productive way, in a way that's not going to hopefully, and maybe it will incite conflict, and that's part of the risk, but that's, and I brought up the book White Fragility, but that book really has actionable ideas in it for conversations like that. And again, this is such a bigger discussion and one that I am not in any way an expert to lead. So just please, for the record, that I really feel, like I said, I don't want to feel like I sound like I'm trying to sound like I know everything. I do not feel that way at all. I feel like I'm trying to do my best to use my voice to invite us all into just continued learning and continued skill building so that we can, help illuminate those blind spots when it comes to people of color and just the world and how it operates. But anyway, I just like, it's tough. It's tough. But again, skill building, learning, I think is really just a great way to start. And that will equip us for those more direct interactions.
I had somewhere along the lines over the last couple of years, I took a different tack because, again, you and I have been writing for the magazine for a long time, and I'd like to think that I have enough of a way with words that I can make up in flashy English what I lack in intelligence. So I'm very good at posting something that might have a real sting to it, just with the way that I write it, not necessarily all that much merit. And and I finally decided, all right, wait a second, how about I start approaching this in a different way? And I make sure that I've done my research, regardless of the subject, whether it's COVID or it's the stuff that's going on with the police and racism in the States, or just somebody that did something fucked up on a skydive, and make sure that I approach that thinking, all right, how can I get my point across without pissing this other person off? Because it used to be, how mad can I get this person, and can I get them to lose their shit in a way that makes me feel like I'm right? And I finally decided that's just a toxic way to be. And maybe you've done this as well, but I don't know how many times I've written a post or a reply or something out and read it and went, oh yeah, that would be amazing, and then deleted the whole fucking thing and wrote exactly the opposite to that because it's just a better way to handle it. So
I'm very mindful with my words because I really do. I try to, and this is just in any area, because I've always really tried to, try to communicate in the way that will elicit the most positive outcome. Like you were joking. This is the irony of this conversation is we've been talking about a lot of tough stuff today. And I think you mentioned before we started how you're like, does anything piss you off? Or
well, actually, yes.
Does anything bother you? Does anything bring you down?
That's something I wanted to ask you. I'm like, you're the most positive person that I know in regard to the way that you write and to your online presence and everything like that. And I remember thinking before this interview started, one of the things that I wanted to ask you was, when's the last time you told somebody to fuck off?
It's so awesome. Oh yeah. Well, I think, I wouldn't use those words per se.
Anybody that reads both our articles knows that.
What I tend to do, and I just was mentioning it, but I'm mindful with my word choice.
Sure.
I'm mindful with my word choice in that when I am making or communicating to a person in such a way that I am, not pleased with their way of being or way of treating me or whatever, something like that might piss me off. I go back, I basically will share about, if I even feel like I want to communicate at all. Sometimes I don't. Sometimes I'm just like, onward. I don't even bother. But I will make it clear. I won't just be like, fuck you, you suck. I'll be like, this is why this was not cool with me.
Right.
Peace.
And
you know,
I'm
and
getting
so that
better
they
at
have an
that.
understanding of what my boundary is. You know what I mean? Because I believe people, not everybody tries to piss people off. Not everybody does something and you know what I mean? Like it's
Sure.
not like people are trying to be assholes most of the time. I hope that's not the case. So yeah, I'm a believer that if you can communicate boundaries and communicate clearly around what happened, that there's always opportunity for reconciliation if that is appropriate. And
Sure.
it's certainly not necessary and not needed. It's just that without if I don't share with a person what bothers me and what upset me, then there's no way to reconciliation. That's just straight up disconnection
Yeah.
and it's that kind of sucks too.
Yeah, no, and I completely agree with that. And I think that falls back to something I said way back at the beginning, which is that I always tend to try and view skydivers in a more positive light, which is probably one of the reasons that up until the last couple of years, if a skydiver did something that was completely opposite to what I believed core values or beliefs should be, I'd snap, because it was such an affront to what I thought the community was about that I just lose my shit. And I've finally gotten better at not doing that because, again, being raised in Northern California, I'm very left-wing. I'm very liberal. I have certain things that I just assume would be values across the board. And it's taken a long time to realize, no, not everybody thinks the way that you do. And you're not going to change the way that they truly believe. You can only try and, in a good way, put your word out there as well. That's the best you can do, and it's tough.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. Oh my gosh. Overall, though, I mean, one of the best compliments I ever got, and this is not even true. I mean, this is a long time ago, but one of the best compliments I got was someone looked at me and they were like, you never are a part of any drama. Like, why is that?
Right.
And I really was like, and this is again a long time ago. So it's like I've been a part of plenty of things that are dramatic, and that's totally okay and understandable being a human engaging in life and fucking people, period. Right. But I didn't, I heard that and I was like, I'm like, why is that? Is that true? And I thought about it. I'm like, and basically I just don't subscribe.
Sure.
I just don't participate. You know what I mean? But that's the thing about this decision of what to participate in and what not to participate in.
Right.
You know what I mean? So like, when is it the right move to go, that I'm leaving over there and I'm not touching it and I don't need to talk about it. And then other things that are going on where it's like, this is something that I want to talk about and use my voice and platform for.
Sure.
You know what I mean? And or say to someone in a one-on-one scenario because it's important to me to show up for myself in that situation, for whatever it might be.
Right.
You know what I mean? But yeah, plenty of people have drama, but I guess the point is that I'm very forward focused. You know what I mean? So you talk about me and the positivity thing. It's not because I don't deal with the darkness, because I do.
Of course.
It's that, and I don't have bad days. I totally do. But I'm so forward focused and I'm so, I feel like I've also done the work to really think about, what do I care about?
Right.
What matters to me? What kind of a person do I want to be in the world? How do I want to show up? And I've done the work, and it's, again, not like it's over, but I'm so energized when I feel like I'm taking actions or writing something or creating something or being with a person or whatever that's in alignment with those values. And this is why I've been able to write for the magazine for as long as I have. It feels so values aligned to me to be able to share in that form on a platform that's elevated. I'm so fucking thankful for that.
Oh yeah, no,
like,
you and I both.
wow.
And it's funny too, because looking back at again, you and I are two very different sides of the same coin. In that, as far as the Blue Skies goes, I'm probably more along the lines of the Andrew Dice Clay of the magazine, and you're a little bit more Oprah Winfrey than me.
Totally.
I tend to fall back
Oprah's
on
my homegirl. I love her.
Yeah, 3 out of 5 of my articles are dick and fart jokes. They're inappropriate and they're literally meant to go for the lowest common denominator laugh. And that's partly because that's what I really enjoy, and partly because I'm good at it, and partly because I really do enjoy making people laugh. But 2 out of those 5 articles are heartfelt, on point for something that I really, really believe in. And it's kind of funny. I was always, and still to this day, I'm shocked that people can't tell the difference between an article that's heartfelt and really truly meant and one that's just out there to get laughs. And I think I'm still probably the only member of the Blue Skies team that's ever gotten hate mail.
Oh my god!
Oh yeah, I've gotten a few pieces of hate mail.
Oh no, I've gotten some.
Have you really? Holy shit!
But that's a different story.
I mean, it always confounded me that anyone that would read an article written by a guy who has the pen name The Fucking Pilot would actually take those words seriously. But it's a double-edged sword, because when I do write a serious article about something that is close to my heart or something that I really do mean, they have to look at it the same way. So I understand it, and I take it both ways. But it's funny because I'll read your articles next to mine in the magazines and go, well, shit, those couldn't be fucking more different. When I spent 2,500 words talking about farting in a twin otter, and you're talking about this uplifting stuff, but it was always really entertaining, and that's the joy and also the genius of Laura and Cola putting out that fucking magazine and letting everything go in that magazine and standing 100% behind their contributors, regardless of how, either sincere or outrageous we were being.
That's totally true. And that's why I write for Blue Skies Mag.
Yes.
I used to write for Parachutist a lot back in the day. And I love Parachutists. This is not a diss on Parachutists. It's only that I'm so protective of my voice.
Sure.
And how my words are used. Again, we were talking about mindfulness of words and using of our voice. And that was essentially the agreement. I said, I want to write. And of course, Laura and Cola were completely supportive from the start.
Sure.
But one of the deals was they couldn't change my words. They could not edit my shit other than for like simple punctuation and spelling and stuff. But otherwise, it has to be, because I feel like that's what it's so important.
Sure.
Like, I feel like the only reason I make impact is because it's actually me.
Yes.
Not because it's an edited version about a topic that happens to be relative to skydiving.
Exactly.
Like, that is, to me, that is not, I don't care about that.
Oh, yeah.
I care about being someone who's showing up as an example of how we can show up in the world. And my hope is it helps people.
Yes.
I mean, maybe it does, maybe it doesn't, but my hope is it does.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and that's probably my biggest point of pride with the way that they've handled that magazine. They've also never changed a single word in any one of the multitude of offensive articles I've written for that magazine.
Right.
And one of the things that shocked me and made me even more proud of how they handle that was finding out that Laura's mom has proofread every article I've ever written for that magazine.
Oh my God.
And I have written horrible things for that magazine. I think the first year that I wrote for them, it was almost an unspoken competition between Laura and I to see if I could ever go too far and have her say, no, I'm not going to publish that.
Oh my God.
So I sat down, I think it was the 4th or 5th article I ever wrote, and I intentionally wrote what I considered to be the most offensive article to this day that I have ever written, and she didn't change a fucking word. She printed every word of it, put it out in the magazine, and went, this is your voice, this is what you want to say, and she's never, ever even suggested that I change it. And how amazing is that? I mean, it's
totally, it's so super critical. It's the reason I have a book. It's the reason How to Fly, my book, actually exists.
Yes.
But I don't know. Have you done your Audible book?
I'm still working on it, but I don't know about you.
Yeah.
The hardest goddamn thing in the world is to audibly and intelligently and be well-spoken reading your own words.
Oh my God, I know. Well, I'm working on mine now. I'm like, I don't know.
It's so fucking hard.
God.
I mean, you're reading it and I don't know about you. You tell me if you do this as well, but I'll be in the middle of reading a paragraph rewriting it in my head going, oh, you could have done so much fucking better. Right?
It's so hard not to edit. Totally.
I'll even ask you, what's your opinion
so-
on this? Because I know that there's two different ways that people do audibles. One of them is they read word for word. That's it. And they put a little emotion into it and they act it out a bit. But other than that, what's on the page is written. And then there's authors that have done audible books of their books that actually kind of tag caveats onto, all right, so this is what I wrote, but this is what I should have said.
Yeah, there's going to be a little bit of both in mine.
Right.
Is that I'm going to read, I'm definitely not going to edit the text at all. And I'm going to read it because what I think is this is up for debate, but what I think is at least one of the pieces that's interesting about my book, and what I'm talking about is How to Fly, the collection of my Blue Skies magazine columns over the 9-10 years that I'm writing for them.
Right.
Anyway, is that you really can see my evolution as a writer and a person.
Sure.
Like the earlier columns are just not that, they're good.
Right.
But like you can really, and I think that's an important part of the overall experience.
Sure.
And so it's a bit torturous.
Right.
to be reading the old stuff and being like, oh damn girl.
It is. I know. Trust me, I feel the exact same way when I put the Blue Skies book together. I'm like, oh my God, I not only did I write this, but I hit the send button and it was put into print. Oh my God. And my mother was one of the first subscribers of the magazine. And I'm like, oh, this is ridiculous. I can't believe, and so you get into the Audible and you're having to relive those articles and relive those experiences. And you can think of all the different ways that you could have been so much more eloquent.
Oh my God.
In the way.
Totally.
Well, you could have been. I couldn't because I was talking about being a fucking Vegas stripper. So there's not really too many ways to be eloquent about that shit.
Oh my Lord.
Right?
Yeah, it's all an adventure.
Yeah,
I will say that.
Reading the Audible is a whole new torture. It really is. And I have no doubt that it's just as difficult for you, but I'm reading back shit that really I should never have put in print.
Yeah, I know. Well, I mean, I don't know. I guess it's to each their own, but like
Sure.
I'm excited about the project, and I definitely plan on reading. So the columns that didn't make it into the book, because I continued to write for the magazine, even though I published this book, is that I'm going to read all of the ones that were not in the book.
Nice.
Also.
Nice.
So it's going to be sort of an extra part of it. But yeah, I've been debating. I feel like I need to make a bathroom toilet studio for myself too.
Right.
Because I've been doing it in my office and it's kind of working, but I've been having some issues with the tech. But again, I love that. If we talk about that type of stuff and, just how much you have to figure out, like the fact that you even have a podcast, figuring out the tech to even do a podcast. Oh my God.
It's been,
I just almost went into a psych ward.
Right. It's been a challenge.
Yes.
It really has been a challenge. And I mean, it definitely, it feeds my need to just say what I've got to say. And I always find it, not necessarily shocking, but certainly surprising that anybody cares to listen at all. But I'm lucky in that I've had so many amazing people on the podcast that I almost assume that people are listening to the podcast in spite of me. And I'm fine with that. I do not mind. I do not mind being the butt of the joke as long as whatever message I feel should get out there gets out there. And
yeah, for sure.
One of the biggest compliments that I've gotten over the podcast has been from jumpers that have stopped jumping but listened to the podcast to remember what it was all about and have just thanked me for feeling like they're back in it in some way. And that's all. That's all I need. I'm fine with that. It's golden.
Well, that's a beautiful thing too, is like coming back to the sport.
Oh, yeah.
Finding your way back when you've maybe taken a break. That I think is such a relevant thing to share about, because think about like the joy of rediscovering the sport is just so wonderful for people who have taken time off that are wanting to come back. Like no pressure, no judgment to people who want to jump or don't or whatever. I'm a really, really, to each their own type person when it comes to skydiving for sure. And just life in general. But yeah, like I'm so glad for me that it was really a fearful time for me thinking about coming back to jumping because I was so afraid that I was going to burn out again.
Sure.
And I was so afraid of just like, of course, hurting myself or dying and just
Sure.
all the things that we worry about. And so it took time. Like I actually had this day where before I got back in the air, I was not quite ready, but I was close and I was trying to be ready.
Right.
And I drove to Jumptown. I love Jumptown, one of my favorite places. Drove to Jumptown, and on the way there, I was trying to just sort of record my thoughts and feelings because I was like, maybe this is something that would be useful to share with the world if and whatever.
Sure.
And I just remember feeling so scared. I was so scared. I was not, and I had fucking 10,000 jumps or more at that point. And I get to the drop zone and it turned out basically not to be like my day to jump. And it sort of, the fear was one thing, but it was like I had a brand new rig and that was super amazing too. But I had a brand new rig and my parachute basically was just too tight in it. And so I was like, okay, that's it. And then the wind picked up and it was just like we couldn't jump.
Sure.
But my point in sharing that is that is for people who are listening who are maybe wanting to get back in the sport, know that it's normal, to feel like that, to have sort of a struggle with it and to work through it however is right for you. So for me, ultimately, I just needed to wait kind of a few more months. And then I ended up going to Cross Keys and I did, like I said, just did a hop and pop with my friends. Logan held my hand on the ride to $5,000, and it's like so simple and so it seems so stupid, but that's what I needed.
Well, that's one of the things.
That's what I needed.
People will take a break and like for me personally, I remembered the risk and forgot the reward. Which is a big thing, right? Because we know it's risky. Obviously, we know it's risky, and statistics don't make you feel any better. You can spout statistics all you want all day long, but anybody that's been in the sport as long as you and I have lost people on ways that statistically just shouldn't have happened. And we all know that. Then, of course, you go out and make that jump and you remember all those rewards come flooding back. Literally the second you let go of the airplane, you remember why you were in it in the first place. But it takes,
so crazy.
Right? But it takes that to kick it back in. And the coolest thing that I've discovered talking to all these different people for the podcast is that the best of the best and the greatest skydivers and the most confident outward skydivers, every single one of them deals with fear, and it's the no fear generation that scares the shit out of me. Don't tell me you don't have fear. I embrace the fact that this scares the shit out of me because it is what's kept me alive and why I've enjoyed it so much.
Yeah. Totally agreed. Right? Completely agreed.
Which is the weirdest thing. How do you tell a wuffo, no, fear is why I love skydiving so much? And I hate being scared. I don't like it. It's not the fear itself. It's the conquering of it and having a good time in spite of it.
Yeah, totally. And again, going back to the positivity thing and like, why am I such a happy person? And because I've had people say to me over the years or look at me and go and perceive me as someone who's fearless. And that's why I write so much about my struggles. And that's the thing, like I talk less. I mean, I talk about them more now because of the Trust the Journey podcast,
sure.
And being on other podcasts and just being further along in the work. But I never want people to think,
no,
and this is and this is only for someone who's in like a elevated leadership role, which just, even if we just take the magazine alone, that just puts you in a leadership role.
Sure.
You're featured in a but like, obviously I'm out there and I'm doing my Facebook lives and I'm trying to just do my business and be in the world with a certain messaging, right? Like that's my job. That's essentially what I do for my job and what I do also from my purposeful values, yada, yada. But it's so important. I feel like part of the reason I'm so happy is that have developed a skill set to work through the anxiety and fear that I feel,
Sure.
because I feel like I've felt a ton of that in my life relative to, yes, skydiving, but also relationships,
Oh, yeah.
love, friendship, just conversations, all of the things,
Well,
growth,
just
anything.
having the balls to face whatever it is, whether it's in the air or on the ground. Absolutely. And that's a big thing too, is I dealt with pretty decent anxiety back after that motorcycle accident years and years ago. And it didn't go away because I started skydiving. Skydiving just gave me the tools to cope with that. And it's a very big thing to be able to go, I know what this is, I know how to handle it, and I know there is an other side to this. And skydiving gave me the coping mechanisms that I would need that other people would end up taking pills or drinking too much or doing whatever. I went and jumped out of an airplane and faced my ultimate fear over and over and over and over again, and then realized that the rest of the shit, the volume got turned down a little bit. And even when that volume got turned back up, I had a capacity to deal with it in a way that I never would have if I hadn't jumped out of a fucking plane.
Yeah, totally. Well, exactly right. It's for reals, man. Like, that skill set is everything.
Yeah.
And the iterative process is also everything in my experience.
Sure.
Is that, you know what I mean? That it both takes the edge off in the short term, such that we're like, oh, okay, I had some reprieve from the fear and anxiety. And you prove to yourself, and this is again in skydiving or in life, in whatever fears that we're facing and sort of inching our way through or bravely stepping through, whatever, is that every time that we do that, we earn a confidence in our ability to do it.
Sure.
And so the next time we're facing a fear, we're that much more confident. It's not that we're fully confident, but we're more confident. Like, and that's where, it kind of comes from. You know what I mean? Like, for me, that's how it's evolved and how it's grown and how I've been able to do pretty much everything in my life and career, for real.
Well, and the cool thing about it too is, and again, going back to just the perceptions by the way that you and I have written in the magazine, because obviously we have drastically different styles in the way that we present ourselves in the magazine. We still have very, very similar mentalities. And very similar journey through the sport, very much so. But the funny thing is, I'll see I'll read one of your articles that's particularly inspiring, or see one of your posts that's super, super happy, and my initial thought will still be, oh, Jesus. Jesus, that's so fucking positive. I'm kind of sick to my stomach, because I'm the guy that just wrote about how stupid I was when I did this, that, or the other thing, but it's that, oh, Jesus, out of respect, because I'm like, oh, Jesus, I couldn't do that. There's no fucking way I could do that. I get it, man. I get it. And that's the thing. Like, one thing I've said a lot, so funny, is that I know, or I've had the experience for sure, where people will meet me, whether it's in person or through my writing or whatever, and think I'm fake because they like, oh, no way. Right. And I am okay with that, because I believe in the long game. Sure.
In the sense that I know it's authentic and real for me. Like, I'm doing my very best. I'm fucking like you, in no way perfect. Duh.
Right.
Like, that is not what I'm talking about, because of course, duh, nobody is.
Right.
But I know that it's real for me, that I know where my heart is in the right place. And I know that over time, if a person gets to know me, that they'll realize that.
Right.
And if they do realize that, then cool. And if they don't, that's okay too. But it's more like, I'm not worried about the short term, like rejection.
Sure. Well, and I kind of get the same thing again, 180 degrees opposite from you. People will meet me and assume that I must be as big an asshole as the fucking pilot is, and then be surprised when I turn out not to be such a big prick. I mean, I'm an asshole. I'll admit it. I'll hold it up. I'm proudly a bit of a dick at times, but I'd like to think that somebody gave me a T-shirt years back that said I'm the nicest asshole you'll ever meet. Which I thought was really sweet, because that kind of wrapped it all up. But it always cracks me up when people take the character, the fucking pilot, so literally and don't realize there's
Right.
a lot of levels to everybody, not just me.
Yeah.
And I write very intentionally and very purposefully to get that laugh. Again, usually towards that lowest common denominator, but it's that fourth or fifth article you need to read if you want to actually know who I am. And I'm fine with people having their preconceived notions, because if that's all, if that's as deep as you want to go, cool.
Yeah, exactly.
It's your ride.
And not everybody is for everybody.
No,
and
God,
that's okay too.
God, no. And
thank God.
well, see, but not everybody believes that. You and I have been around long enough and put ourselves out there enough to know that there's just going to be people that just can't stand us. And it took a long damn time to not try and defend yourself against those people, because that's what it feels like, right? You've got to defend yourself against the people that don't like you or don't like what you stand for, and then eventually you just go, oh, fuck it. It just doesn't.
Yeah, and just it's okay.
Yeah, it doesn't.
You
matter.
know, and that's the thing. Like I love everyone, which sounds so sort of lame too.
Yeah,
but
I'm not going to say
meaning
that.
I do. I joke that even people I don't like, I like, but it's only because I don't like everybody.
Right.
I don't. But I do love everybody. And I mean that from a very like higher level spiritual sense. And it doesn't mean everybody gets access to my space. It doesn't mean you know what I mean? I want to be friends with everybody. It just means that I really rest in a place of love, and really aiming to understand and doing my very best to be love and be that ball of light, be that light in the world in the best way I know how at this current juncture in life.
Right.
Like that's my hope, and I do my best, and I'm not perfect, and what else can you really ask for, you know?
Well, and in the broader sense, I'm not quite as outward as you are, but at least in regard to specifically in skydiving, there's a lot of skydivers that I either don't know or might not like, but most of them I respect only because I understand the journey that they've gone through to get where they are. So unless they take a stance that's something that I just clearly cannot get behind, chances are I've got at least a healthy respect for that person, which I suppose is kind of the same mentality in regard to your looking outwardly and having love for these people even if you don't like them. You know, there's more than a few skydivers that I don't like at all, but I respect them. I
believe we're all connected. I really do.
Yeah, I suppose.
And I mean that in the bigger sense. But yeah, for sure. I mean, it takes something to be engaged in life in any way.
Sure.
You know what I mean? Life is rough.
Right.
A lot of times, you know what I mean?
Right.
And so I definitely agree and get and yeah, I mean, especially skydiving, it's just such a quirky, weird thing.
Right.
It's one thing I love about it so much. It's so weird.
It is.
Like what? We hang on to an aircraft in flight. Like we get to be on the outside of an aircraft in flight.
Yep.
What?
Yep. I know it.
Like that's still
the whole.
if
you break the sport down just to basically just describing specifically what we do, it sounds on paper it looks fucking ridiculous.
So weird.
It really does. If you just write out you're going to do this, 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 and this, most sane people would go, "You're out of your fucking mind. There's no way I'm going to do these things," you know. But then you've got this massive group of people that do all these wonderful things, and.
Yeah.
So now, as I get to the end of each podcast, I always ask, especially the long-time jumpers, two different questions. One of which is, what do you say to people just coming up in the sport? They're just deciding they want to be a skydiver. What advice do you give to those people looking forward? And for those that went through what you and I went through, that burnout phase, where they don't know if they want to be a skydiver anymore, what do you say to them?
Yeah. Well, new jumpers, I mean, there's a lot. I would certainly say reach out to me anytime you want. I would say that first, truly, and I mean that, and I really mean that. And my email is mel@melaniecurtis.com, and that's not a plug. The reason I say that is because it's connected to the piece of advice I would give is that most people want to help and support you.
Sure.
And that it can feel so scary to be a young jumper and be like, oh my God, I don't know what I'm doing.
Right.
There's all these cool people around me that we perceive as cool and no more, and nobody wants to jump with me, and all those things that sort of block us from connecting to the community and getting sort of the help and support that is really totally available to young jumpers. So yeah, that's what I would say. I would invite you to breathe
Right.
and know that most people are going to be nice to you. And if you run into anybody who isn't, that is likely the exception to the rule.
Sure. I completely agree with all that.
Yeah. And the burnout thing, gosh.
Right.
Yeah, I mean,
it's a big question.
We kind of touched on it, but I think it comes down to, I mean, the bigger conversation is figuring out how you got there in the first place so that you know not to do it again.
Right.
So that comes with that deep introspective work that we're hoping all skydivers want to do. So booyah, do that
Sure.
work. And the other thing is take your time. Take as long as you need. Try to remove that magnifying glass of self-judgment that comes on, and that fear of I am not welcome anymore because I'm not skydiving, or you know what I mean? Like, figure out how you would want to re-engage in the sport if you decide to.
Sure.
You know what I mean? Like, it's that reflective work is so important, because then you can just do the thing that we do anyway, which is be brave and re-engage in the way that you want,
Sure.
that serves you.
Well, I think one of the biggest lessons that I learned in all that was it's okay not to go jump. It's okay.
Totally.
It's totally okay to just go, I don't want to fucking skydive. But it's very difficult for people like you and I that were in the sport so deeply to literally step back from what has become your entire life. You know, and
oh yeah, man.
And that's the big thing.
So weird.
It's okay to not jump. It's okay to just go, I need a fucking break.
It's one of the best things that ever happened to me, honestly,
me too.
Dean.
Me too.
And the reason why was it one of the best things for you?
Honestly, it just gave me perspective. It showed me what was important and what I had forgotten, and that I had turned it into a business. And it wasn't the actual jumping; it was the environment and the people that I was around and letting things get to me too much. If you ask me now what my favorite way to skydive is, it's still doing tandems, because I so loved giving that experience to someone that would not otherwise have had it, or I get to put my unique spin on it. So I fell in love with that kind of skydiving, but it's hard work. And it was very difficult to match up the fact that I love doing it to the fact that sometimes it just fucking sucks. You know, so I was really torn by that. And because I started shooting video and then competing and then chucking drogues so early on in the sport, I never just went out and was a goofy fun jumper. I didn't just go out and do stupid things and have fun with my friends. So I never really experienced that portion of it. And when I got back into it, that's all I did, and went, oh, this is why I became a skydiver. What do you know?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. I just, for me, it was so powerful to realize and to have the experience, because I mean, how old were you when you started skydiving? You were young.
Yeah, I started jumping at 26.
Okay. So, I started when I was 18, and so my entire adult life was colored by skydiving.
Sure.
You know, my entire adult life included this intense focus on skydiving. And so for me, it was so useful.
Sure.
I mean, it was painful. It sucked, but it was so good
Sure.
for me to be able to have the life experience of, oh, I can find happiness and friendship and interest in my life. Because, you know, the entrepreneurship, the public speaking that I do, the life coaching work that I do, I love that.
Sure.
You know, Amy and I were just talking the other day about, you know, how I really do have sort of two lives. And I really like that.
Oh, yeah.
In the sense that I have a sort of woofo life. And the only reason I even have access to that is because I went through the painful sort of, how do I live without skydiving? Right. And now I get to be in skydiving in the ways that I really love too. So that's another reason why I'm a happy person.
Sure.
Is that I'm really only spending my time doing the things that feel, purposeful to me and a part of the life that I want to be living and the life that I want to be building.
Right. Well, and again, very similarly, I was able to step into skydiving and let's face it, skydiving is very counterculture in a lot of ways, or at least it has been until very recently. And so I went from, I took my pants off for a living and promoted raves. So I went from that to stepping into a world of professional skydiving, which, let's face it, is not that different.
Right.
It really isn't. I mean,
I used to say I got paid to dress up in costume, which is so true.
Absolutely. Before I jumped, they thought I was crazy because I took my pants off in public. And then after I started jumping, it was because I was jumping out of airplanes. So not that much changed for me. And also I was lucky enough to maintain the friendships and the cultural side of skydiving because I was flying in it. So even though I got to sit up in the front of the plane and be by myself and play a bit of a hermit role in skydiving, I was still in it. So I never really had to walk away from the community, which, let's face it, again, for me, never going to be standing on a podium. That's what the whole thing was really about.
Yeah, that's what I did when I was in my break. I had fully stepped away from the community, except for writing my column. And I thought it was such a travesty. And I really thought it was a trap because I love helping young jumpers so much, and I love coaching and just helping young skydivers.
Sure.
That's just one of my favorite things. I thought it was such a travesty that I had to be physically at a drop zone to help people,
right.
that the 20 plus years of shit in my brain couldn't be of service unless I was physically on a drop zone, which is something I couldn't do at that time. I needed to be away.
Right.
And so that's when I basically created the online coaching group that I now lead for young jumpers. So in the time of COVID, like Zoom has become this big thing, but we've had this group for 4 years. Every single Monday night, 30 minutes, 8 p.m. Eastern time, we have a call.
Nice.
And we, in different people, it's been through many different phases. One of the guys that joined the group, he started when he had 14 jumps, and now he has 500-600 jumps and is wingsuiting and is working in the sport and doing all this kind of stuff. And it's just so wonderful to be a part of that type of just to be a part of helping people be safer and make friends and find, like I said earlier, find the path that's right for them in the sport. It's not that I do anything per se other than hold a space for us to meet and have some laughs and whatever. Well, learn, watch some videos.
And that's kind of how this podcast came about as well. It wasn't necessarily a podcast to be specifically about skydiving, but like I described before we started recording, this podcast was designed to be as if the listener just sat down next to a bonfire drinking a beer and they're listening to a conversation that happens on every drop zone everywhere. And it's so cool. And that's one of the things that makes it so much fun. And I took about a 2.5-year break from the sport entirely because I went to try and be an adult and fly for an airline. But I was still just like you when I was out of the sport. I was writing for the magazine. But the funny thing about that particular time, and especially in my writing, is the articles that I wrote in the 2.5 years that I was gone were all the craziest over-the-top stories that I didn't have the balls to tell when I was still showing up to the drop zone every day. So for those 2 years that I was gone, my articles got more offensive and more over the top because I was trying to get myself back into that mentality, and dive back into it. And that was one of the funnest things about this podcast is, and I've told other friends this too, even if no one was listening, I would still do this podcast just because I love it. And because when I'm 90, I want to go back and listen to these and remember, oh shit, I said that. This is,
I know.
Considering I came up in a generation that didn't have camera phones and everything wasn't videoed and filmed, these are going to be a blast to go back and listen to and go, oh, that's what I was thinking? Holy shit,
Oh my God.
So now how do people find out where you're at? How do people find you online? How do people find you in person, whether they want skydiving coaching or life coaching or any of that stuff? How do they track you down?
Yeah, thank you, my friend. I appreciate it. The skydiving group that I lead that I just mentioned, that is at thevsc.life. So it's the Virtual Skydiving Center. So thevsc.life is that. Please join us. It's like $5 a month. I really just charge something because I believe it helps people engage more. So they get something.
Sure.
For life coaching, it's melaniecurtis.com. And like I said, the podcast, that's trustthejourney.today. And yeah, thank you. I love this. It's been so cool to talk. I really appreciate I'm just grateful. Thanks.
No, thank you so much for taking the time to sit down. I'm glad we booked more than an hour's worth of time because I have a feeling if you and I got going, it's just gonna keep going.
I know there's so much we didn't cover too.
Yeah, one thing I don't think neither you nor I suffer from is public speaking fears. That's
the work, man, the work.
Yeah, that's not an issue at all. Well, guys, for everybody listening, please check her out for both the virtual skydiving, for the life coaching, and where are you jumping if they want to jump with you in person?
Yeah, Skydive Cross Keys is my home DZ, and I do a lot of organizing at Skydive Orange as well.
There's a lot of memories I left in that place. I don't have any of them, but they were really cool from everything I've been told. Skydive Cross Keys was in almost every insane article I've ever written came out of Skydive Cross Keys.
Fabulous. Pico and Nadia will love that.
Melanie, thank you so much for taking the time.
Thank you.
Blue skies. And that's it. Another edition of Lunatic Fringe Into the Void, brought to you, as always, a whole bunch of times now, considering it was me and Melanie, from Blue Skies Magazine. BlueSkiesMag.com is where you're going to head to subscribe to the magazine. That's also where you're going to go for all the cool swag. That's where you're going to go to send those photos that you want in print out there or online, and those article ideas as well. We want to hear your stories. For me, I am the fucking pilot. Go to thefuckingpilot.net to be able to subscribe to this podcast and get all the links to all the different podcasts that I've done. I think I'm up to 75 podcasts now with amazing people. Also, both the links for both the books that I've written, the Blue Skies Magazine's Fucking Pilot book, as well as the Accidental Stripper, both of them available in digital and print. And as Melanie and I discussed, hopefully, painfully, soon to come, Audible. Once again, Lunatic Fringe Into the Void. Thanks for coming. See you next time.